Okay, thank you brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the last of our content for Friday, day 1 at WBAC 2019. Know Your Source is our sponsor. So tonight we're having a panel discussion on some of the structural developments within the Bufo Nation, and as some of the previous panels talked about, the collectors and their role in the what could you call it, maybe God's assembly line of how does the medicine get ethically and sustainably from this sacred creature of the Bufo alvarius toad to a person who wants to experience the medicine of the Bufo alvarius. So the collectors are essentially what I see in the larger organism of this Bufo Nation meme, this group identity we're becoming as a global culture. There is an ecosystem, and the collectors are at the root of that. And they are agreeing to some ethical standards for collecting toads, which have been developed by herpetologists, and which both WBAC and the new organisation fairtradetoad.org is promoting. So the panel tonight is about fairtradetoad.org and to introduce that idea and to run through some of the things which we want to do as an organisation in terms of creating standards and holding both the community at large to help create a demand for those standards, and also the collectors and other aspects of the medicine culture to do the right thing. So I am Rakrazam, and I'll be emceeing this panel, and I have been involved in helping the genesis of fairtradetoad.org. I'll just say that it is a new organisation, and I am on a few not-for-profit organisations in the States, Terra Incognita project, which is a sponsor of WBAC. And sometimes what you do is you have a not-for-profit organisation is intended to raise money, like Greenpeace or Amazon Watch or any other not-for-profit, for a cause, to be in service to the community. And so in this case, you could think of Fair Trade Toad perhaps as like Greenpeace for Bufo, right? And often when there is an organisational structure to a not-for-profit organisation, there's a board of directors. So you could think of this as a prototype board of directors. We're going to talk a little bit more about the organisation, the idea of it, how it's growing, when it might actually be fully operational. And I'll just let some of the other board of directors introduce themselves, starting with Mario Garnier.
Okay, again, I was invited to Fairtrade Toad, and I am gladly participating. Not really active, not really in the like in the field. I'm just part of the backup team and the board, part of the board of directors of this beautiful idea of Fairtrade Toad. And I'm giving the microphone to my brother Fernando.
Gracias. Yo soy Fernando Suárez.
Gracias. My name is Fernando Suárez. Thank you very much, Rag, Dean, Mario, for inviting me, for trusting me. It is important to reach agreements and recognize and acknowledge that we all come from the same family and we are ready to grow together and assume the responsibility of growing together and take care of each other.
Oh, okay. My name's Dean Jeffries, and I guess I got inspired to look for a fair trade toad process a few years ago when I discovered a dead toad at the bottom of a bucket that had been used by collectors, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And also because of the Facebook group that I manage, Toad and 5-MeO DMT forum and support, there's a big call there for people to want to know, there's lots of questions coming up all the time, like, how do we know this toad that we're getting is collected properly? Is there respect for the toad? And so there's a need and a call coming from the community, from the people who are being initiated in this medicine for responsible collecting, and just seeing this movement grow and seeing the protocols develop and the agreements with the collectors it's a really exciting movement, and I really want to encourage everyone to get support it and get behind it, especially the people who are actually paying the money for the magic.
So Dean hit on a really good point there. That on the how do we identify ourselves as a community? How do we find each other? How do we share stories and recognize? And how do we grow? So Dean has co-founded one of the larger groups of Toad and 5MEO Forum and support for 4 years or so now. And it's got about 5,500 members. And the Bufo community is growing, and there are questions being asked, as he said. There's a desire from the community at large to know that the community at large, including collectors, practitioners, and so forth, are doing the ethical thing, doing a sustainable thing, and doing the best. Because at the heart of it, this is a sacred medicine. I mean, all the shamanic gifts from Gaia are. The gift of Bufo alvarius toad, people may have different interpretations, but it can be a very sacred heart opening into your true full potential, into this divine connection. And as with medicine work, what we find is any baggage or any issues we have comes into the medicine field. So it seems like collectively, as the Bufo nation grows around the world, we're working on our stuff, we're healing, we're growing, we're reconnecting. And at the root source of that connection is the medicine of the Bufo alvarius toad. So the demand from the community is asking for there to be such protocols and such understandings. And fairtradetoad.org has emerged from that community consensus of people saying, well, let's try, let's give it a go, let's do something, let's do what we can. So I'd like to emphasize that no one here on the panel or no one involved with fairtradetoad.org wants to be a monopoly, wants to be elitist, wants to be hierarchical, wants to be some old paradigm way of engaging with the community. The people here who have agreed to participate in helping shape fairtradetoad.org have done so as a labour of love and in service to the community. And we are open to suggestions and feedback and support if you want to join. So maybe on that note, I'll just hand over to Fernando, who has been helping implement some structural logistics of what a fairtradetoad.org as an organisation will be in the Mexican system, like the politics or the not-for-profit organisation.
As you some know, I am a lawyer, and the best way to organize a non-profit organization in Mexico is through lo voy a decir en español.
I'll say it in Spanish. It's a civil association. So there are plenty of rules that make us transparent, and we have to have an accountability system towards the government, and this is our fight. We're trying to get organized. We have many tools that let us organize ourselves and establish these transparency rules of organization, of clear goals, clear objectives, so that we can establish this organizing mechanism. So if all of us realize how powerful we are, we would change so many things in our lives. Sometimes I had these fights with my family or friends because there are communities whose water is just taken away by soda companies or beer companies, but they keep consuming sodas and beer. So on one hand, people are complaining about the lack of water and about injustice, about a particular situation, but they are falling upon the temptation of consuming these products that are taking away the water from them. So the toad as a tool that is giving us this awareness, that if we are not aware, we will just go back to the base of the pyramid of this system, and we will just be the base, the foundation of business people, and we will just allow them to do all this business. So being a social, a civil association in Mexico give us the power of purchasing the medicine of the toad. So if we are well organized and if you trust us and if collectors trust us and if we play this role of a container that will only benefit the community that will be consuming the medicine and pay and that will pay economically a wage to the people that are collecting the medicine from the toads, plus the taking care of the ecosystem on the desert and the desert communities. We can do marvelous things. Maybe it seems to be utopical, but it is possible if we are well organized.
Vamos.
Okay, now the idea is to share again what is the fair trade toad. So, but I want to stop here, and before reading this, I would like to encourage the community to be part of these projects. This is just seeds, brothers. We are planting seeds. There's too much work to do that we gladly will be part of, but I hope that after this panel, people can, join us or come and say, how can I help? I'm gonna read the fair trade toad document. Is that okay? And if I would say again, if somebody feels that it's necessary, there's help needed. There's help required to do this job. There's a lot of work to do, and we as a community need to take control of our reality with work and commitment. So I'm gonna read the fair trade toad document. Mission. Fair trade toad supports a sustainable engagement between the Bufo alvarius toad and the world, conserving the toad and its habitat whilst promoting a fair and equitable place for the toad medicine in the marketplace. Fair trade toad is committed to preserving the Bufo alvarius species in the face of increasing human engagement whilst facilitating the sustainability of its secretions into the world. Establishing ethical and safe rules for handling, milking, and engaging with the Bufo alvarius for the sustainable milking of its secretions. Establishing protocols for delivering the highest quality product from the Bufo alvarius secretion that can be proven and branded. Developing a healthy and equitable working relationship with the collectors of the Bufo alvarius secretion, including inspecting their sites and reserves to prove their handling the toads matches our high ethical standards. Working with collectors of the Bufo alvarius secretions to set a fair and equitable price for the toad medicine and to ensure a fair percentage of said fund goes back to scientific research, indigenous caretakers, and other areas of Bufo community concern. Supporting indigenous peoples that live on lands where the Bufo alvarius inhabit and promoting awareness and stewardship roles between these people and the toads, as well as investing funds from the fair trade of Bufo secretions back into those indigenous communities. Supporting fair trade principles with regards to the Bufo alvarius secretions in the commercial marketplace. Improving the conservation status of the Bufo alvarius. Protecting, improving, and enlarging areas of habitat important for the Bufo alvarius in the wild and reserves. Providing national, governmental, and other decision makers with conservation, science, and cultural advice based on the best Bufo studies available. building broad partnerships with all stakeholders needed for effective conservation, management, research, and education. Researching the medical and scientific benefits that may come from the secretion of the Bufo alvarius to improve the quality of people's lives. Educating people about the wonders of the Bufo alvarius and their role in an emerging mestizo cultural phenomenon with the Bufo alvarius medicine. Vision. We envisage a time where the sacred medicine of the Bufo alvarius toad is recognized as the treasure it is, as a neurological tool that can aid in relieving mental and bodily stress and connect to our spiritual nature. We strive for the preservation of this unique creature and the ethical integration of its medicine in our human culture. We support a global community to sustainability work with the well-being of the toads, their habitats, and their place in the web of life for generations to come. But that's just a dream, brothers and sisters. This is just a paper at this point. We have created the structure. Fernando has created all the paperwork, the legal stuff. But actually, we will need people to be part of this. And as we are extending the invitation to make this true, to make this happen, thank you.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things I'd like to share there, and one is that in that support, what also I imagine is needed is some financial support as well to pay for the researchers, to pay for the the people who are working with the communities and stuff as well. So something that I've been interested in promoting and also doing myself, with the retreats I'm running and with other facilitators that I know, is to encourage like a 5% donation from any money that's coming in from the toads to go into a pot, and then when it's ready to receive donations through the various tax donational foundations, which Rack might go into in more detail, that money actually comes out of the pot and it goes back to toad conservation, because it's not only the right thing to do, but it's also important that we do it, because this sort of work that we're talking about here is going to require some money, and if it's coming from facilitators that are sharing the medicine, then that's like supercharged money. So when that comes back to the foundation, it's charged with all your energy, so it's going to really do its job really, really well. And just when you talk about inspectors and stuff, I think it's probably important, but I prefer to see them, people who go to the communities and work with the collectors or whatever, as supporters, supporters to help them to make sure they have what they need, make sure that they've got the information, the research, the whatever is necessary, for the best management of the toads. I've seen some people out there taking advantage of toad medicine, and even getting people out there to serve people and then getting percentages back to feed their own sort of nests, and there's a few issues going out there. So we really need to make sure that we know the source, where it comes from, that it's ethical, and that some funds are coming back to support this process.
Okay, so we're going to take some questions in a bit, but first, I just wanted to drill down. We touched upon this. Mario mentioned it in the collectors panel discussion on what are the best practices. So if you look on the WBAC.info website, in the menu, you'll find under resources a document which is being created by herpetologists. It's in Spanish and it's in English, and it's called the Bufo alvarius toad, Best Handling Practices. It's also on the fairtradetoad.org website, which you can check out. So just as a preface to that, we are not condoning the milking of the Bufo alvarius toad in a widespread, unsustainable way. We're not being elitist. We're saying that there is an ecosystem, which is a key word that's been mentioned by a few other speakers on this panel and others, not just in the toad and its environment, but in our community, in how this connection between the collectors at the root on the earth, you know, being stewards of this medicine and receiving it from the toads, to then ethical practitioners. And there is a talk tomorrow by the Mexican Guild of Practitioners, is it ATPA? Bufo, Alvarius Bufo Therapists Association. There's, okay, yeah. There's other organizations that are organically emerging around the world, like the Conclave, which is a ethical guild of practitioners who serve both 5-MeO in its toad and jaguar or synthetic forms, who have been helping create frameworks for things like practitioner best practices, or understanding that there's a wide diversity of ways to serve the medicine, but there's a baseline duty of care that everyone should respect in regards to this sacred medicine. There's movements of both the community and practitioners throughout Europe, in Australia. This is a global Bufo nation, and what we're seeing develop is, I believe, an organic response from the community to self-organize, to be sovereign, to make decisions collectively. So one of the reasons we stressed in the breakout groups explanation, and if you've been participating in one, is that there are existing community models and standards for engaging with each other with respect, you know. So all of that is leading to this feedback loop of this community is a container in itself for the ethical, sustainable and sacred transmission of this medicine into the world. So just in brief, I wanted to go over what is the agreements that the collectors have made and that Fair Trade Toad and WBAC are agreeing to, that the herpetologists have given us in regards to best practices for the harvesting of the toad medicine. And again, we're not saying everyone should go out and harvest toad medicine. No, this is something where we're trying to have the right respect to the land, to the indigenous communities of the land, to the collectors, to the tribes, to setting up infrastructure for tribes to potentially have co-ops where the collection of medicine empowers them financially but keeps it indigenous and on the ground. There's an ecosystem developing. So, you know, the Sonoran Desert is both sacred and dangerous. And please, we're not encouraging anyone to go to the Sonoran Desert, you know, as previous generations, like with the psilocybin magic mushrooms with Maria Sabina in the 50s and 60s with the hippies, to flood, you know, indigenous communities with, I guess, as mainstream media might call drug tourism, but I would say is more a pilgrimage of seekers who are wanting to be part of this community. So in brief, let me just read out some of the best practices which are the cornerstone of the Fair Trade Toad brand and understanding. The Bufo alvarius toad and its medicine are sacred gifts. In honor of these gifts, we have developed this document to share techniques for handling toads more safely and respectfully. Fair Trade Toad does not condone the handling or milking of the Bufo alvarius alone. We acknowledge that people are engaging in this practice, and if this is being done, it should be done in a way that is both safe and sustainable for the toads themselves. The practice of milking toads for the purpose of obtaining secretions for use in spiritual or ceremonial practices should also be done in accordance with any protocols established by existing guardians of the land, including tribal protocols, and in accordance with state and or federal jurisdiction and regulations regarding amphibian handling. So we know the Sonoran Desert goes over into Arizona, and there are different laws in place for handling, having fisheries and wildlife license, and the milking of the secretion of the Bufo alvarius toad in Arizona for purposes of consuming is currently illegal under the laws of that land. If you plan to handle toads, please consider doing so in a sacred manner and take precautions to protect the toads from unnecessary harm. Remember, the toads only come up to eat and breed. If you engage them too early in the season, you could be breaking that cycle. So here's just some point things that the herpetologists have recommended. Captive or pet toads cannot survive in the wild. There is a high risk that captive toads can spread disease, like the amphibian chytrid fungus, to wild populations. In addition, captive toads cannot survive being released into the wild where they are unfamiliar with conditions and predators. It is considered inhumane to release them where they pose a significant danger to wild populations. So there's a supply and demand online. You know, sometimes you see the medicine being sold willy-nilly on Facebook. Sometimes you see questions from people wanting to buy toads. Some people out there are selling toads. Some people then realize that it's a sacred creature and want to return it to the wild, and there's concerns about returning it to the wild and its safety, or taking it from the wild in the first place. Drive carefully in toad territory. This is really big on both sides of the border, and there's also an underlying issue in this of cultural respect for the toads, where to a large degree in both America and Mexico, the Bufo alvarius toad is seen as a pest and is eradicated and is a danger to dogs that may eat it. And there were warnings. I saw some warnings in earlier parts of the year in America. You know, it was on the mainstream news. These toads are around. They've got bufotenine in their glands. Beware. So drive carefully. Don't kill them. Don't go out of your way to kill them in nature and the land. Leave adult toads exactly where you find them. Adult toads, not younger toads that are still developing, cannot survive being moved to a new location. Toads will become disorientated and are unable to hide from predators in an unfamiliar place. They will likely die in an unfamiliar location, even if the new place is good habitat, or in the attempt to return them to the original breeding site. Toads have a strong fidelity to their first breeding site and will continue to return to the same place for the rest of their lives. Furthermore, moving toads disrupts their ability to breed, lay eggs, and to reproduce the next generation. So in terms of handling toads themselves and milking them, we're just going to have a very brief little demonstration while Mario reads out point 1 and point 2.
Okay, pay attention. We're gonna have a demonstration. So, handling toads causes stress. A toad's body will only release secretions when they are under stress. Handling or milking their glands causes stress and should be acknowledged. While amphibians do not show visible external signs of stress, internal hormones may be surging, which have a negative effect on the immune system of the toad. Milking also depletes the toad's immune and defense systems, and it can take 30 to 60 days for it to fully recover. During their recovery period, the toad's immune and defense systems are impaired and are more vulnerable to predators and illness and have less energy available for breeding. Handling Bufo alvarius toads does not transmit warts or disease to humans, but you could be spreading amphibian chytroid fungus from an infected toad to other toads. And milking glands also causes stress. The Sonoran desert toad has large parotid glands on both sides of the back of its head and smaller glands on its hind legs. Milking all the glands on a single toad leaves it defenseless. Consider milking only one or a portion of the glands. Don't milk all the toads at a single site. Give toads plenty of time to recover before visiting the site again. This may require developing an agreement or system with other people who visit the same sites. Thank you, Aluna. Thank you, Aluna. Okay, our great lady alvarius. So,
this is a sacred creature, and there are ways that we are going to be asking the collectors to step up and to maintain these best handling practices. And in that ecosystem that's being created, it's open. It's open to the community response. We have these forums, we have all the Facebook groups, we have Five Hive, we have different capacities to meet each other and to discuss these issues. So you know, there is this hashtag that is on fairtradetoad.org, which has a Twitter account, and we've launched a hashtag, and we don't know what we're doing. So if anyone has social media help, please. It's all volunteer basis at the moment. We're fleshing out this plan, this dream. But the idea with the hashtag Know Your Source, and the S in source is a number 5, which creates a unique, identifiable hashtag, is to share so that we can hear each other. We can see each other. With that hashtag, you can share a video, you can share a comment, you can share a photo of what you want the collectors and the practitioners to be engaging with the toads. Your dream of what fair trade toad means. Your dream of how the toad should be ethically and sustainably handled. And we feel that this has to be a community response. We're not here to tell people what to do. We're an invitation to join this community together, to be responsible, to be sovereign, to use the hashtags, to use the social media groups, to build a demand for fair trade toad. So as we know, this is late July 2019. The Bufo alvarius toad has risen from its sacred slumber this season, and you know, the milking of toads has begun with the collectors in Sonora. These best handling practices we have fed on to the collectors, and it's going to be a teething process for them to come up to speed, and for an organisation like Fair Trade Toad to have the resources and the people to professionally go in and support them to be doing the best handling practices, to see what support they need on their land, to work with what they've actually got. And then the dream is, if the community is demanding or asking or holding space for the ethical, sustainable handling of the toads and the emergence of this medicine into the marketplace, then it will exist. Then the collectors will listen. So there is a phenomenon happening with the Bufo alvarius toad around the world. You see it all over social media. There was this little known guy called Mike Tyson who did the toad a few months back, right? And so all of a sudden, all the men's magazines and TV shows and boxing people and alpha males all across the world are going, what is this Bufo alvarius toad? So we don't know what the global population of our community is. We're ephemeral, we're distributed, but we're out there. We have these networks to connect and to find each other and to discuss. But whatever it is, it's going to balloon, and it's going to grow and bloom, and it's going to get very big very soon. So these structures and systems are in place to manage at the root structure the ethical sustainment of the medicine. Some collectors may choose not to join Fair Trade Toad. It's an invitation, right? The power is in the community. If you ask for Fair Trade Toad standards to your practitioners who ask to their collectors, it will happen. Because there are other collectors that are perhaps hypothetically harvesting a lot of medicine who don't want to be part of that and may not be practicing best standards. But it's a marketplace. And we're going to talk about this throughout WBAC as well. In that ecosystem, we believe there's a safe, ethical, sacred container for doing the work, for receiving the medicine, for harvesting the medicine. And the general populace, post Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind, post Mike Tyson, post the next bump on the social media feeds of the mainstream world about Bufo, many people are interested. And so the supply and demand of medicine, we just hope it's kept sacred. And we are relying upon you to step up and help us to keep it sacred.
Something I'd just like to ask people out there, especially if there's collectors out there that are watching this feed or in the audience, just how serious we'll say consumers are about whether they would prefer to buy from a source that they know is from Fair Trade Toad, or whether it doesn't matter. So I'd like to see like a show of hands or make some noise if you think that buying Fair Trade Toad is important to you. Okay, so if there's collectors out there, take note that it looks like just about every hand in the audience is up. So it's important that you jump on board, because this is also in your interest, that these toads are looked after sustainably and respectfully.
And I think the first step is to adopt the brand and make it worth, I would say, right? If we believe that this is the way that we can use our power, then it's going to work. I think that if we embrace the Fair Trade Toad project, then we're going to make it possible and we're going to have the power.
And about the organization, tomorrow I will talk a little bit more about the legal stuff. And voy a hablar en español.
Now I'm going to switch to Spanish. There are very important points for all of the organizations, and as well the future of the organizations, I think that is going to be within the blockchain. So for many of you, this is a new thing. Probably you've heard about Bitcoin or Ethereum. I would like to invite you to open your mind and to start adopting these technologies, because then we're going to maintain our organization in a professional way with transparency, a decentralization of our organization. It means that we're going to be working for the same purpose. It's not someone that is leading, but it's all of us that are making these decisions. And another important topic that is going to give us sovereignty. So now we don't depend on the system or the government or some other things that we have out there for telling us that we're doing the things in the right way. At the end, we're the beneficiaries of this medicine, and we are the ones that are living these lives, our lives, and we are the ones that have to be held responsible of each action that we carry out. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about about how can we carry out this. I'm going to give more information on this topic, and the idea is to implement this in this organization and as well in the organization of therapists. We have an association of therapists for the Bufo alvarius, and something that it seems like they are very good ideas with these tools may be implemented in a tangible way.